What is going on, guys? It's me, number 10, the eagle. In Roman mythology, the founding of Rome was marked by the appearance of an eagle carrying a spear in its beak. This omen convinced the legendary Romulus that this was the spot chosen by the gods for him to establish his city. Ancient Romans were obsessed with eagles, and they became the symbol of Rome and later the entire Roman Empire. But there was one problem. While Rome ruled much of the Mediterranean, even they had limits. And there were places so far away from their empire that if you were stationed there, you might as well have been at the edge of the world. In fact, the eagle may have been the only thing that could have found you. One of these locations was the island fortress of Massilia. Located in the Atlantic Ocean near modern Portugal, it was here that Rome maintained one of its most isolated outposts ever. To get there, an imperial legion would have to sail for over 2,000 miles through the Strait of Gibraltar and then north along the Portuguese coast. It was the furthest point of the empire from the center of power in Rome. If you were sent there, you would have been on your own. There was no way the eagle would have found you. Number 9. Hadrian's Wall. Emperor Hadrian came to power after a string of bad emperors, including his adoptive father Trajan, who famously died while marching his legions into the heart of Dacia, now Romania. Hadrian decided he wanted to put an end to any more wild expansionist campaigns. He reigned from 117 to 138 AD, and during this time he traveled all throughout his empire, visiting remote border regions and key military garrisons. During one of these visits, he conceived a plan to build a wall across Britain, right where the island narrowed. His engineers and soldiers got to work, and within 6 years, a wall was constructed 73 miles long. Over 15 feet high, it stretched from one side of the island to the other, complete with watchtowers and fortifications. Roman troops would patrol back and forth along the wall, stopping anyone who tried to sneak into Roman Britain. For the natives of Scotland and Wales, the wall was an intimidating sight, built by the greatest military force in the world. They knew that if they tried anything funny, those legions would come crashing down on them like a wrecking ball. Number 8. Along the Danube. There were several walls built by the Romans, but perhaps none was more important than those built along the Danube River. The Danube was the largest river in Europe, stretching from Germany to the Black Sea. It was also the farthest frontier of the Roman Empire from Rome. In fact, the Danube actually flowed through Roman territory and then continued on to empty itself into the Black Sea. For centuries, the Romans had to deal with nomadic tribes along the river who would raid their settlements and kill their people. It took them decades, but eventually Rome built a series of fortresses, defensive structures and walls to keep the barbarians out. It wasn't easy. Tribes kept pushing against the Roman walls, trying to break through or simply plundering villages. One of the most famous battles in ancient history took place along the Danube when a coalition of Germanic tribes fought against the Romans in 101 AD. While Rome ultimately won the battle, it showed just how dangerous it was to live along the river. The fighting never really stopped. There was always some small skirmish happening somewhere. Number 7. Along the Sahara. While the deserts of North Africa seem practically empty today, in Roman times they were home to prosperous cities and busy trading routes. Cities like Leptis Magna, Sabratha and Oea, now Tripoli in Libya, were centers of commerce and culture for the Roman Empire. As the trade grew, however, so did the danger. Bandits and desert tribesmen roamed the Sahara looking for rich merchants to rob. Eventually, the Romans had to step in and protect their valuable trade route. They built a series of forts along the edge of the desert where it met the rest of their empire. The job of defending these forts fell to auxiliary troops, foreign soldiers who served Rome but weren't necessarily part of the elite legions. These auxiliary troops were usually stationed in the forts for 5 years, guarding the supply caravans as they made their way across the sands. Of all the legions in the Roman Empire, those stuck guarding the Sahara probably had it the worst. You would go insane if you were stuck in the desert without air conditioning. Number 6. Fortress Ambion. Fortress Ambion was one of the most remote settlements of the Roman Empire and one of the hardest to reach. To get there, You would have to sail up a narrow inlet in what is now the northern coast of Turkey. Up this inlet, surrounded by towering mountains on both sides, was the town of Ambiaron. From there, you would have to hike up into the mountains through thick forest and climb steep cliffs until you reached the fortress. The fortress was built around 250 BC by the Roman general and consul Publius Sulpicius Rufus as a way to defend the province of Galatia from invaders. He named it after his wife, Cornelia Ambrona. But even though the fortress was built to stop invaders, it ended up being invaded anyway. In the year 220, it was sacked by the king of Armenia. Then in the 3rd century, it was taken by the Goths. By the time the Roman Empire fell, the fortress had changed hands so many times, it was difficult to keep track. Number 5. Britain. Most people don't realize just how far away Britain actually is. Sure, France is just across the Channel, but the closest major city in France is nearly 200 miles away. When the Romans invaded and conquered Britain, they quickly realized that the island was very difficult to reach. It took weeks to travel to Britain from Italy, and even longer if you had to stop at Gaul and get permission from the local governor to cross the Channel. Because of this, Britain was one of the most isolated parts of the empire. If something happened in Rome, it could take months for the news to arrive in Britain. Governors of Britain often had to make their own decisions about how to rule the province without knowing what was happening in the rest of the empire. The only way to truly stay connected to Rome was by sea, and those seas were cold and unforgiving. Storms could easily sink a ship and wipe out an entire fleet. There was a reason the Romans never really expanded further north. It was too far away. It was easier to rule Egypt than Britain. Number 4. The island of Chios. While not exactly a city, the island of Chios was one of the most isolated settlements of the Roman Empire. Sitting just off the coast of modern Turkey, the island was hard to reach and even harder to leave. The island was also famous for its beautiful marble, which was used to build statues and monuments throughout the empire. But it was also known for being incredibly hot in the summer and incredibly cold in the winter. The locals developed a reputation for being grumpy because of the extreme weather, and outsiders were often shocked by how unfriendly they could be. In the 3rd century, an emperor named Elagabalus made the mistake of visiting the island. The locals hated him, and so did the emperor. He ended up putting several of them to death. Number 3. The island of Malta. Off the coast of Sicily lies the tiny island of Malta, just 8 miles long and 3 miles wide. It's hard to believe that such a small island could be so important to the Roman Empire, but it was. The island's strategic location in the Mediterranean made it a prime target for invading forces. In 250 BC, the Romans built a fort on the island to protect their shipping lanes. And for the next few hundred years, Malta was a vital part of the Roman navy. The island was also home to a large number of slaves who quarried stone and supplied the empire with marble. In fact, much of the stone used to build the Colosseum was actually brought from Malta. But as the Roman Empire declined, so did Malta's importance. The island was sacked by Vandals and then left mostly abandoned until modern times. Number 2. Fortress Buri. This fortress was supposed to be impossible to conquer. Built in the middle of nowhere between the Caspian and Aral seas, it was the furthest outpost of the Roman Empire. But it didn't last for very long. In the year 112, a rebellion broke out among the Parthian army. They killed their emperor and replaced him with another. This new leader, Osroes I, immediately began planning an invasion of Roman Mesopotamia. He led his army to the fortress of Berytus and laid siege to it. The defenders held out for months, but eventually the Parthians broke through the walls. Fortress Berytus was never rebuilt, and soon the Parthians had taken full control of Mesopotamia. Number 1. Londinium. Londinium was the Roman name for the city of London. The city was founded in the year 43 AD by the Roman Emperor Claudius and was one of the most important cities in the Roman Empire. The city was located on the River Thames, which provided a natural defense against invaders. The Romans built a wall around the city in the 3rd century, but it was never finished. Still, this wall stands to this day, a testament to the enduring legacy of the Roman Empire. Today, the City of London is home to over 9 million people, making it one of the largest cities in the world. So next time you're in London, take a moment to appreciate the history of this amazing place. Thanks for watching. Which of these places would you want to have been stationed in? Let me know in the comments below and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. See you next time. Bye.